Story Corner Special Edition, presented by Jennifer. Poltergeist. It happened again. When Victor Lincoln discovered his home's usually locked front door hanging wide open, he knew he'd find trouble inside. He stepped into the house, and his fears were confirmed. His family's Jackson, Michigan house had been broken into and vandalized. Garbage, as well as food from the refrigerator, had been thrown about. Furniture was pushed around and flipped over. Light bulbs were smashed, and the water faucets in the kitchen and the bathroom were running. Standing behind Victor, his wife shook her head. "Why are they doing this to us? Even those new double locks won't keep them out." "I'll go and call the police again," Victor said, sounding defeated. "Not that it'll do any good." And so it went for 2 full years. The Lincolns endured break-in after break-in. Nothing could keep the intruders out of their home, and no one can guess who might be targeting them, or why. But then, in October of 1961, the family discovered a startling truth. The vandal wasn't a who, it was a what. "Victor!" Mrs. Lincoln screamed. "Victor, come quickly. Please, hurry!" Responding to his wife's frantic cries, Victor raced into the kitchen. He arrived just in time to see a stack of dishes fly out of the cupboard and smash against the wall, one by one shattering on impact. The dishes did so, and all on their own. Thump, thump, thump. 22-year-old John Lincoln looked up from his book towards his mother. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Mrs. Lincoln, sitting on a living room chair across from her son, nodded. "It sounds like someone coming up the basement stairs." They turned to look at the door and waiting in dreadful anticipation as the footfalls grew louder. At the top step, the noise ceased for a moment. It was soon followed by a thunderous knock. John and his mother jumped out of their seats. Victor, who had heard the commotion from the next room, rushed past his family members with his shotgun in hand. He grabbed the door and flung it open. No one was standing behind it. Victor cautiously led his dog downstairs, but his search for an intruder came up empty. The dog, however, seemed to find something. The Lincoln's pet began to whimper softly, and then it darted back up the stairs. Following that frightful encounter, the Lincolns decided it was time to move out. In the weeks that followed, things went from bad to worse. While the house sat for sale, the spirit became more terrifying. Moaning sounds were heard in the basement. Phantom footsteps patrolled the premises. Books were moved and piled in various locations, and in one instance, Mrs. Lincoln was attacked. She was completely alone, lying on the living room couch, enjoying a rare moment of peace and quiet. "This is the life," she thought. Suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, Mrs. Lincoln noticed a blur of motion. She spied an object flying towards her. Before she could even flinch, a paring knife grazed her leg. As blood slowly formed atop her fresh scrape, the frightened woman mentally noted, with certainty, that the knife had been safely stowed in a kitchen drawer. Not long thereafter, the holidays arrived. However, the ghost did not welcome the festivities. 2 days after the Christmas tree was up and decorated, in their living room, the Lincolns watched in horror as lights, ornaments, and tinsel were thrown across the room by an invisible force. "That's it!" exclaimed Mrs. Lincoln. "We're taking this tree down." Word began to spread about the strange happenings within the haunted home, and the Lincolns found themselves with several visitors, each wanting to experience the poltergeist firsthand. Mr. and Mrs. Gringa's friends of the family witnessed the house gas and water inexplicably inexplicably turned on. The Getterans also heard a guest outside walking onto the porch and up to the house's front door. When no one knocked or rang the bell, the couple peeked through a window and found that not only was no one standing at the door, there were no footprints in the snow either. Jackson County police officer Harry Keller visited the house as a skeptic, but he too was present when the gas and water turned themselves on. Investigative reporter Raymond Megahan studied the home most extensively, spending 10 hours over 3 separate trips inside the place. Along with 4 other investigators, Megahan remained in the living room with the entire Lincoln family, waiting for something peculiar to occur. It took a while, but eventually the bathroom water and the gas seemed to activate automatically, while everyone was present in the living room. The group moved through the house to get a closer look, when they heard the sound of glass shattering. "It seems that a small bottle was thrown against this closet door," said one of the men. "There are shards of glass everywhere." Suddenly, as the team examined the strange scene, all the lights explicitly turned off. Despite these bizarre incidences, the investigation yielded no conclusive evidence of a haunting, as each event could have been attributed, however unlikely, to an elaborate hoax. At last, in the summer of 1962, the Lincoln family sold their house and moved away. By all accounts, the ghostly disturbance ceased as soon as the Lincolns were gone. The home had been in the Lincoln family for several generations, dating back to 1912. This, coupled with the fact that the hauntings grew more intense after the Lincolns decided to move, led some to speculate that the family was terrorized by a distant relative who was protesting the sale of the property.